Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents All the Lies by S.T. Abbey, narrated by Marie Hawkins and T.J. Clark. Tim Hoover, Chuck Cosby, Nathan Malone, Jeremy Hoyt, Ben Harris, Tyler Shane, Lawrence Martin, Kenneth Ferguson, Boogeyman, Gerald Plemons, Anthony Smith, Kevin Taylor, Morgan Jones. Governments need to have both shepherds and butchers. Voltaire. If Logan and I ruled the world together, Voltaire would consider us the perfect blend. My list might have grown, but the names are coming down quickly. It's almost time to sprint to the finish line. It's time they die at the hands of a dead girl who forgot how to be weak. I can't wait to watch them burn.
Chapter 1. To the living, we owe respect, but to the dead, we owe only the truth. Voltaire. Logan. Marcus Evans. That boy was a handful when he was a child, but such a sweetheart. And Victoria. She was always his shadow. Wherever Marcus and Jacob went, she followed. They let her. Just a year separated Victoria in age from the boys. And Robert, well, he did all he could to make sure those kids were loved. Jacob spent more time at their house than he did his own, because the man was made of a sort of strength and compassion you can't just find anywhere. Diana Barnes clears her throat, and I watch as she stands to get a glass of water. You boys want anything to drink? No, ma'am, we both say in unison. Her chocolate skin is a stark contrast to her ivory dress that hangs to her knees. She's a regal, timeless sort of woman, with haunted eyes. Haunted eyes like my Lana. Only there's a sense of guilt there as well, unlike Lana's. There's a jaded harshness to the way she carries herself, as though she's forcing herself to make it through each day. You have kids? She asks us as she returns, sitting down with her water, drawing out the suspense. No, ma'am, we both say again. I'll bet you both enjoy being bachelors, and thinking time will never catch up with you. Donnie shifts in his seat uncomfortably, but I just smile. I'm not married, but I'm not a bachelor. She studies me intently for a moment. Victoria would have liked you. She was mostly raised by her father after her mother died when she was 10. She shared a house with 2 men, so she was more comfortable making friends with boys than girls. She was selective with her friends, more than her boyfriends. Not that anyone could have known. I inch forward. Known what? Nah, I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to know first that Robert died in lockup the night he was convicted of crimes he couldn't commit. They threw every shoe and the kitchen sink at him to make him the murderer, as though that would somehow make the killings just disappear and everyone could go on with their lives. She sips her water again, and I refrain from demanding she get to the point. Robert was with his kids every night. My boy was even over there a lot of those nights. Jacob, of course, was there most nights as well. Robert cooked, he cleaned, he cared for his children, and he usually had others come over and hang out as well. Such a good soul, and a good home. People couldn't stay away. My boy's daddy left when he was a tiny little thing. Robert always talked to my boy as if he was his own, and as a single working mother, I appreciated all the help I could get. I returned the favor when I could. She pauses, swallowing down emotion that I didn't detect in her voice. Her eyes grow dimmer. He never could have raped and killed those women. He couldn't even raise a hand to his own kids. My boy saw him. Jacob saw him. Several of those nights, he was home with his kids and 2 extra. Didn't matter. They wouldn't allow the eyewitness testimonies or admit them as alibis in the courtroom. What? Why? Donnie asks, confused. Because then they couldn't convict him of murders he didn't commit, she says, as though it's obvious, and he's stupid for even asking. Donnie leans back, annoyed, not at her, but at the situation. He knows how Johnson is. He'll make something stick, and he'll cut all the corners to lock his suspect away. And the court backed this? The court, the sheriff, everyone. They held him in interrogation for 5 straight days, locked him in that box with no right, wouldn't let his lawyer in, then lied and said he never evoked counsel. It was a witch hunt from the get-go. It was easier to pin it on the school janitor with no other family than his kids in this town. That Johnson fella pegged it to be him, and from then on, they made it happen. The sheriff was right beside him. The original profile was a sexual sadist. They don't have kids too often, and if they do, they're distant from those kids, not loving and doting. He profiled the unsub as a loner, but he wouldn't have been. No signs of forced entry means he was charming and approachable, likely someone they trusted. Hence the reason it was someone in the town who did it. His ability to frame a man makes him a narcissist, and this town played right into his hand, giving him the power that really got him off. And fooling the world was the ultimate high. Did anyone have any grudges against Evans before that night? No, she says, laughing under her breath. That man was a saint. If a kid had an accident at school, he cleaned it up and told them to run along before someone saw it. He didn't want them to be embarrassed, and knew kids could be cruel. His own kids were mercilessly mocked for being the janitor's kids. I leaned back, trying to find out what in the hell made Johnson so insistent on pegging this guy as the unsub. Even he has a heart. What about the sheriff? Did he have any issues with him? Her lips tense. The sheriff was too emotionally invested in finding someone, anyone, to make pay. His daughter was one of the first victims. The true, sick, evil man who killed her. He put her in the middle of the street for everyone to find the next morning. She was naked and raped raw. Her skin was sliced to pieces, and she'd bled out overnight. Donnie swallows thickly, and I sit back, wondering how in the fuck that never made it into the case reports. The sheriff would have been required to step away from the investigation. It also makes him less likely to be the primary suspect, which was the direction I was leaning. She was 18, Diana goes on, choking back a sob. The sheriff wasn't right in the head after that, after seeing that. It was the hardest thing this town had ever gone through at that time. And from there they just got worse. A body was even on the church steps one Sunday morning before church started. One was on the school steps, right there for the children to see. It was Eileen Darvis. She was a kindergarten teacher. Just 23. She has to stop and blow her nose. Her tears are falling freely now. Anyway, the night Robert was convicted, they were supposed to take him to the prison. Escorts were here and everything. He was found hanging in his cell the next morning, after they delayed the transfer. Ain't no fool gonna believe that man really hanged himself when he was desperate to get an appeal. He was gonna seek out true justice, not go down like that. I never could find out what really happened. I hope you do. Donnie's fists tighten. It's always painful to hear about the wrong man's life getting shattered because of another man's ego. Johnson shattered many lives. Couple days later, them babies were walking home, and Victoria stopped by here. I was beside her when her phone rang. Kyle called Victoria, telling her he could get her in to see her father's body, since they said they couldn't release it. The sheriff said they weren't 18, and since there was no one of age to claim the body, the city had the right to dispose of it. I got that taken care of later. Too much later. She blows out a shaky breath, as though she's steeling herself for the rest. Victoria had dated Kyle. Gave that boy more of herself than she should have. He wasn't too happy when they broke up, but he didn't show his demon right away. He was manipulative and calculated like that. She'd only dated him for a few months, one of the few boyfriends she'd ever had. Her daddy talked sense into her when he heard how Kyle talked down to her. She never said why she broke up with Kyle, but Kyle had never given her a reason not to trust him. Not until that night. Donnie's phone beeps, but he ignores it. When my phone starts ringing, I silence it. Neither of us are stepping away until we have our answers. It's just Johnson trying to find out what we're up to. Victoria went to meet him, and Marcus caught up with her, wanting to see his father as well. They needed answers. No note was left, no goodbye was given. He just died, and they slapped suicide on there. Jacob was not with them for once, and thankfully, neither was my boy. She breaks, becoming a sobbing mess. I shouldn't have been thankful when those babies suffered, but I was so glad they didn't get my boy too. She's almost incoherent now, her tears falling too fast, and her sobs racking her body. Donnie looks at me, dread in his eyes. We knew there was assault, we knew it was sexual, but I'm starting to piece together all the kills now. Diana calms herself by some miracle, hiccuping around a sob. And Kyle, oh, that boy was pure evil, she says, her tone turning angry now. They met him at the end of Belker Street, and he wasn't alone. He brought several volunteers with him to help him punish the killer through his kids. Belker Street is where the message about angels was written to sound like an omen of things to come. They jumped them, got them down on the ground, stripped them bare on the middle of the street. After that, they took turns on both of them. She has to stop when she gags, and she turns her head. Donnie is white, and his fists are tighter. My entire body is rigid right now. How many? Donnie asks quietly. 13 in all, she says, still sobbing. Only Dev couldn't go through with it. He stood there, though, and he told me the story after it was over. The boy was so twisted up in the head he was sent to therapy for over a year. Then he joined a church ministry group that travels all over the country spreading the word of God. He's how I know. So 12 of them took turns raping them, Donnie states, his calm tone betraying the simmering rage that matches mine. Over and over and over, she growls, her tears falling angrily. They didn't stop. Those babies laid on that street for hours, bleeding and screaming for help, and no one came. But that's not even the worst of it. I don't know how much worse it can get. Lawrence, Morgan, and Kyle were the worst offenders, the darkest souls around. After they'd grown bored with raping them, Kyle walked inside someone's house and borrowed a full-length mirror. The Wissonants just handed the mirror over like they didn't know what was going on right in front of their home. Kyle returned, handed the mirror to Morgan, and Lawrence jerked Marcus up to his feet. My phone rings again, but I silence it once more, not even glancing at the screen. Kyle pulled out a knife and had Morgan hold the mirror behind Victoria. He wanted Marcus to be able to see what was coming next. Then Kyle told Marcus to fuck his sister, to rape his own flesh and blood, or he'd cut off his dick so he could never use it again. My stomach roils, and Donnie chokes back a strangled sound. Marcus refused, told them all to burn in hell and take whatever. Kyle slid the knife over Marcus's waist, cutting him, and told him it was his last chance. Said if he was pervert enough to like it in the ass, that he was pervert enough to fuck his sister. Marcus spit in his face, and Kyle made true to his threat. Castrated him there, in the middle of the street. It's all I can do not to walk out. I don't want to hear any more. Hell, I'm not sure if I can ever look at anyone in this town without hating them for helping hide this. Why did Diana not come forward sooner? When Diana recovers again, she goes on. The mirror fell and shattered. Victoria had already been beaten to a pulp, her face unrecognizable. They'd pounded her face into the ground, hit her with their fists, and so much more. When the glass shattered, they dragged her through it. Then Kyle sliced her at the waist with the knife. After that, He grabbed a piece of the mirror, showed her what she looked like, and he slammed the piece of mirror into her. His parting words to her were that she'd die a monster and a whore. They left them to bleed out in the streets. Then Marcus drove them out of the county to give them a chance to survive, I say, on a quiet breath, because the sheriff owns everything in Delaney County. She nods slowly, then shakes her head. Marcus never once thought he'd survive. He just wanted to save his sister's life. Neither one of them made it out of the hospital, and this town lost its soul. We all became hollow shells of who we were, because fear ruled us. Why not tell someone sooner? Donnie asks, trying not to sound accusatory. She gives us a grim, solemn look. The ones who tried ended up missing or dead. Lindy Mae Wheeler tried to stop them that night. She ran up, but Dev hauled her back off, tossing her into a car and locking her in it until they were done. She was married. Next thing I know, Kyle is telling her husband he slept with his wife, that she seduced him. Antonio left her, and no one believed her when she said she'd been raped repeatedly by Kyle. Her daddy had to get her out of town because he worried she'd be killed. My blood freezes, and Donnie's eyes meet mine. Lindy Mae Wheeler, the woman our unsub chose to care for a broken child he took the time to save from a true monster. Diana doesn't notice our look. They threatened my boy. He was on his way to college in less than a year. They told me he'd never even graduate high school if I stirred up problems. I believed them. Still do. That's why I sent him to his girlfriend's place. That girl makes a lot of money, and she has the best security in New York. Most of the unsubs left town, Donnie tells me. They had to, Diana interjects. The only way the sheriff could keep people afraid, but still living here, was to banish everyone but his boy from this town. His boy is the worst of all of them, but he ain't getting banished. But don't you worry, he paid them boys off real nice. Kyle Davenport is the sheriff's son. It's no wonder he covered this up, Donnie says, on a pained breath. Covered this up? She asks in disbelief. He orchestrated it. He had his deputies go to each and every house and say if they heard something, to stay inside. If they failed to comply, there'd be consequences. He even sent out a broadcast to our TVs telling us there was an immediate curfew. No one out past sunset until told otherwise. He helped his son plan this out, then let him do what he couldn't stomach to do himself. Why? Donnie asks. But I know why, without hearing the answer. His daughter was raped, tortured, debased, and shamed even after her death. As far as the sheriff was concerned, Robert Evans was the man who did it. Killing the man wasn't enough for him. He had to go and shatter his kids before killing them too. Said the world needed to be cleansed of the devils it bore. Yet he never sees the evil in his own son's eyes. Even that boy's mama knew he was no good. Again, my phone goes off, but I'm not finished here, so I ignore it once more. Kyle was a monster, just waiting to be unleashed. Once that sort of evil escapes from a box, it doesn't go back in. I agree with her wholeheartedly on that. He's raped at least 3 people that we know of, and one of them was even a male. You boys want to stop a killer from hurting this town? But I just want those babies to finally have a voice. People are dying from holding in these secrets for so long. Who is Dev? Devin Thomas. He's the judge's son, she says on autopilot. As I stand, I look at her and recite the names we know of, 2 of which are an uncertainty. Tim Hoover, Chuck Cosby, Nathan Malone, Jeremy Hoyt, Ben Harris, Tyler Shane, Lawrence Martin, Anthony Smith, Kevin Taylor, Morgan James, Kyle Davenport. She meets my gaze. Jason Martin. He's Lawrence's cousin. He lives in South Carolina these days. Works as a real estate developer there. He was the 12th. Thank you for sharing this. Just tell me. You'll do more than hear it. I plan to, I tell her honestly. Donnie follows me to the door, and I turn around to face her one last time. How did Victoria and Marcus's mother die? Car crash, she says on a sigh. A rich couple from a few towns over collided with her after they got drunk at a party. Their last name was Carlisle, I believe. They orphaned their own daughter with that wreck and killed a damn good woman who was just trying to get home to her kids after a long day at the hospital. It's like this family couldn't catch a break. Nurse? I ask, though I don't know why I want to know. No, she was actually a coroner for the same hospital where the kids died. I figured that's one reason they also chose that one. Their mom was a loved woman, with a lot of friends from there. I nod in understanding, and we turn to leave. They worked in a pack mentality that night, Donnie whispers, as we step outside and shut the door. With Kyle as their most dominant alpha, it was more prison pack mentality, joining together so as not to be the odd one out. As young as 15, some of them, Donnie growls. Adolescents are easier to manipulate and control. They looked up to the three, Lawrence, Morgan, and Kyle, but Kyle mostly called the shots. Someone that night would have butted heads, with there being so many alphas. Not that we'll know. Morgan and Lawrence are already dead. Devin, we need to find him. He left part of the way through it to lock up Lindy May. What if he came back and watched? How else would Diana have known the rest of the story? I purse my lips. I noted that too, but Diana never explained. Were we ever able to interview the ones on duty in the hospital the night the kids came in? I asked Donnie. No, it's been over 10 years ago. We were lucky they were able to give us what they had. Why not tell someone there they were hurt? I ask him. He shrugs. Every ounce of energy suddenly gone from him. I feel like I've been through the same emotional vacuum. I don't know, but I do know Johnson knew about this. Kyle was put into protective custody. We need more than one woman's word this all happened. She wasn't even an eyewitness. And if we're taking on Johnson, then we're also taking on Director McAvoy. We're going to need solid evidence. In the meantime, we need to find out who else is a target and what really killed Robert Evans. I never once in my career wondered if I was on the right side of the law. Until today, he says quietly. Revenge killings always make us question our standing. He won't stop just at the ones who killed the kids, I remind him. He opened some doors, but didn't touch anyone. He stole some mirrors, put some ink in some water and played with some paint. He could have already killed numerous people, but he hasn't. He's terrorizing them. It's his own form of revenge against the whole town. He knows how their minds work. They've been drenched in 10 years of guilt for knowing this and doing nothing. They believe something supernatural is really going on right now. Why do I feel like he's just getting started? Donnie asks, as we get into the SUV. Why doesn't Kyle Davenport have the same surname as his father? I ask. He pulls up his iPad, reading something on it. Says Jane Davenport was the mother. The sheriff didn't know Kyle even existed until Jane showed up in town one day with Kyle in tow, and she handed over custody. My eyebrows go up. What? He shakes his head, whistling low. Hadley dug all this up somehow. Kyle is one sick fuck. Started torturing and killing animals at the ripe age of 5. By 7, his mother decided she couldn't handle him. He had a tantrum and cut her with a knife. She took him to the sheriff, who was all too happy to take away all her custodial rights, and she stayed in town, watching her son grow up from a distance. I bet her life was a living hell. Where is she now? His brow furrows. Dead. She died 10 years ago, shortly after the trial for Robert Evans started. Why do I feel like that's not a coincidence? I groan. Because everything in this godforsaken town is tied to that nightmare somehow. Just as I crank the car, I look up, seeing a flash of red. Quickly, I get back out, and I climb onto the hood of the SUV, reading the tops of the buildings in the distance. It's the town hall I see from here. Written in red, on the side of the roof, is one message. It is difficult to free fools from the chains they revere. Donnie climbs up beside me, and he sucks in a long breath. First he quotes the Bible, and now Voltaire? What's the purpose? No clue, I tell him, as I hop down, even though I think it's pretty clear what the separate messages mean. Just then, my head snaps to the speaker on the pole, because music starts filtering through it. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird. And if that mockingbird don't sing, Mama's gonna buy you a diamond ring. That's not creepy at all, Donnie says with a shudder as the nursery song plays on in a woman's voice. Everyone in the street turns to stare at the speaker closest to them, all of them paling. You think he's going to cleanse the town? I tighten my lips. He's showing a lot of control. I don't think he wants to cleanse, but I think he wants them to confess. He's here because we are. Otherwise he'd have killed the last name on the list that isn't in this town. He came when we did. But why? When I find out, I'll let you know, I tell him, driving away from the house that dropped a bomb on us I wasn't prepared for.
Chapter 2. To the wicked, everything serves as a pretext. Voltaire. Lana. How's your dad? I ask Jake as he walks around the room, hooking up a final monitor. He's taking the meds again. You know as well as I do how hurt his ego is that he's sick. But it's handled. Now we can focus on this. I watch the look on Logan's face as he steps out of Diana's house, and I know she told him all she knew. I'll watch Diana's house in case they make their move, Jake tells me, brushing my shoulder with his as he sits down beside me, his eyes flicking to the numerous monitors he has spread out on the walls of the old hunter's cabin. The FBI came through, did a sweep of all these, and then Jake set up our temporary headquarters in his father's cabin that has been empty for years. I nod appreciatively, but I can't take my eyes off Logan, seeing the pain in his eyes. Pain for a girl he never knew. Pain for a boy he'll never know. Pain for a past that has haunted me for 10 years. And he's not even finished getting all his details just yet. There's still more to learn. He'll find the evidence he needs, Lana. You're right about him. He's the real deal. Too good of a man to be sullied by the dark thing I've become. I know he will. Then my father's name will be cleared, at least to the people in this town who condemned him. And Marcus will have his vengeance from the grave, he adds quietly, cueing the music that has everyone in town pausing almost immediately. Only the ones too young to remember the sound of my mother's voice singing that song on the church stage are able to shrug it off. But everyone else is growing increasingly terrified. Terrified of the dead coming back to haunt them. You ever wonder what we might have become if my father had never been convicted of those murders? I ask him softly. No, because if I start wondering, I'll never stop, he says without hesitation. The musty smell of the cabin will have to be washed off me before I leave. I'm putting him in danger by letting him go on this egg hunt, I tell Jake as I turn up the volume on the monitor with the sheriff speaking. You have his back, Jake says, his lips twitching as we see the sheriff turning a precarious shade of white, hearing the music play through the speakers. He remembers that night, the night my mother sung that song on the church stage for a very important play. Almost the entire town was there. It better be enough, Jake. If he gets hurt because of me, I'll fall over that edge, forget what this is all about, and kill without prejudice. My hands shake just thinking of the monster I'd become if I lost my entire soul. Jake's hand covers my trembling one, and he leans toward me. I'll reel you back in. I stare at him grimly. If Logan is hurt because of me, or for any reason, you won't be enough. I feel it when the tear escapes, and Jake tenses, seeing the single bit of wet proof of how vulnerable I am because of one man.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?